So when we're first starting, I'm going to get my whiteboard here now. I'm going to start using the clock face, and I'm going to start by teaching the child about the different parts of the lines, okay? So I introduce, this is the baseline. All my letters sit on the baseline. This is the dotted midline. Okay, so there would be, if I were teaching a tall letter, I would actually have the top guideline here too. I'm going to start with two short letters that only go up to the dotted midline. So I also have the top guideline, but here I have the dotted midline, and the letter that I'm going to be teaching are two letters. They touch the dotted midline and they touch the baseline. And this is my clock, and it sits on the baseline, and it's touching the dotted midline. So we talk about the different parts of the line. I will make sure that my child understands the different parts of a clock, can read numbers, where is 2 on the clock, where is 10 on the clock, because we're going to be going up and over from 2 up and over to 10. So I want to make sure the child is familiar with that. We can play games. Okay, I'm going to say something, you touch it as fast as you can. We can play with this idea, but I'm going to introduce the different parts of the line. So I start with that. Then I'm going to teach the strokes that are needed to form my first letter. And I teach the strokes as they're needed when I'm going through the various letters of the alphabet. The first stroke that I teach is called the short uphill stroke. And so I start on the baseline, and I'm going to go up and over to 2 on the clock, and I stop. So that's the short uphill stroke. So let's say it together. So you there on the other side of this camera, you say it with me. We're going to start on the baseline, and we go up and over to 2 on the clock, and we stop. Okay, so that's our dialogue. So I will say that as the child does the right, or watches me, I demonstrate this, and then I have the child do it. Maybe the child will use his finger and erase so up and over. And notice he's erasing. Then the child will write. So they will pick up the pen, and we will do it together, and we do the dialogue. The child says the dialogue. So we're, again, multisensory. And so we learn the short uphill stroke. Okay, then we learn, now completely separate, we learn the Clockface stroke. And so I start at 2 on the clock. I'm going to go up, touching that dotted midline, over to 10, and then I'm going to continue, touch the baseline, finish at 2, boom. Let's do it again. Let's say it together. Start at 2 on the clock, up and over to 10, continue around, touch the baseline, up, and stop at 2. And again, I have the child say it, repeat it, do it. Can you do it by yourself? Can the child do it with me just saying it? And I watch and see if the child, now, is the child going to have perfect circle? No. They're a child. Any attempt to reproduce what the instructions are telling them to do, that's great. Now, if the child goes like this, then they don't understand up and over. Okay, so I might work on that a little bit. It just depends on the child and what, you know, how detailed I want to get. You get too detailed and you're going to lose their interest. Okay, then the last stroke that I want to teach is called the connector, because I am teaching cursive and the child has to learn how to connect one letter to the next. So I start at 2, I'm going to go straight down and add a little tail. For the first letter I teach, that is how I write the connector. So start at 2, go straight down, add a little tail. So now I've taught 3 strokes. The child is able to write those from the visual or verbal instructions. Again, this is more difficult for erasing with the dry erase, but it still works. Okay, so now I'm ready to teach. The child has those 3 strokes. The child knows the parts of the line, the clock face. We've established the groundwork. So now I'm ready to teach the first phonogram. So I tell the child, oh, I am so excited. Today you are going to learn your first phonogram. You're going to learn how to read, and this is so exciting. This is a celebration day because we're going to learn a phonogram. So this is our first phonogram. This is what it looks like in a book. And it says 3 sounds. It says ah, a, ah. Let's say that together. Ah, a, ah. And the child says it. Ah, a, ah. Oh, you know the first phonogram. That is fantastic. Now, this is what it looks like in a book. And this is what it looks like when we write it. So what does this say? And the child says, ah, a, ah. And I say, oh, that's right, you remembered. And I say, now this also says ah, a, ah. What does it say? ah, a, ah. Now I'm going to show you a card and you tell me what it says. What does this say? Ah, a, ah. Yes. What does this say? Ah, a, ah. Yes, you got it. Yay. You are reading your first phonogram. Now let's learn how to write that phonogram. Okay, go ahead. All right, so let's learn how to write it. Now you actually know the parts to this phonogram for writing. This is so exciting. So we're going to do our short uphill stroke. We're going to start on the bass line. We're going to do short uphill stroke. Sorry. We're going to go up and over to 2 without lifting my pencil. I'm going to do the Clockface Stroke. Back over to 10, touch the bass line, stop at 2 without lifting my pencil. I'm going to add the connector. What did I write? I wrote ah, a, ah. Let's say it together. Ah, a, ah. So that is how to write this phonogram. So you try it, and then the child will possibly erase ah, a, ah, short uphill stroke, Clockface Stroke, and add the connector. Wonderful. Now you write it. Hand the child the pen, and the child does something like this. Uphill and around. And am I going to fix that? Nope, not right now. I don't need to fine tune that right now because the child's getting the idea. They're getting the idea. I don't want to be too picky at the beginning. Okay, so then we work on ah, a, ah, and I might move to the soapbox and we'll practice it there. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Not a lot of time because I've got some more phonograms I want to introduce. I want to be quick. I want to introduce a bunch of them. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So, all right, here's a new phonogram. This is so exciting. This is our next phonogram. This is k, s. You say it, and the child says k, s. Oh, that's fantastic. Now, if the child says k, s, that's not right because you're adding a vowel sound to that. This is not k. This is k. So let's say it together. K, s. That's right. Good job. This is what it looks like in a book. And this is what it looks like when we write it. Notice it starts with that connector because we're coming, either starting there on the bass line. We always know where to start. Our starting place is always the same for lowercase letters. But if I'm going into this letter in a word, then there's my connection. Okay, so I teach that. So let me show you what does this say? What does this say? It's the same thing. Great job. All right, so how do I teach it? Let's go back to our clock. Okay, so we're going to start on the bass line just like we did for the other one. Do short uphill stroke, go over to 2, stop without lifting the pencil. We're going to go up and over to 10. Now I'm going to continue back around until I hit the bass line. Ooh, now I'm going to go straight into my connector. I don't go up to 2 for this one. When I hit 6 on the clock, I go straight into my connector. And that forms what? Tell me what I wrote. K-s. Good job. So I start on the bass line, up and over to 2 without lifting the pencil, back up and over to 10. When I hit the 6, I go straight into my connector. And what did I write? I wrote k-s. That is the phonogram. So then I'm going to practice. I'm going to practice what I have taught. And so we will practice reading our phonogram. So I'll shuffle the cards together. Okay, here we go. So let's practice reading. What does this say? Ah, a, ah. Great. What is this? Ah, a, ah. What's this? K-s. What's that? K-s. So we practice reading. One of the questions we're asked is, if you're teaching cursive, how does a child learn how to read print? This way. They're reading print. From the very beginning, we introduce it. This is what it looks like in a book. This is what it looks like when we write it. And does a child have any problem learning that these are both the same? Absolutely not. The way that I'm doing it simultaneously, I'm teaching this is this. They understand very easily. You know, when I teach colors to a preschooler, and I'll get a color, here's blue. This is blue. And child learns to recognize this is blue, okay? This is blue. And somehow they learn this is blue too. They're not the same, are they? They look slightly different. But this is also blue. How does a child know how to do that? Well, because the brain is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Do not underestimate what a child can learn, okay? They learn very easily. And the way that I'm practicing the phonograms, right, and they know how to write it, okay? They learn that very, very easily.